The segment is sponsored by the Thumbs Up Guys. They're not just for the course anymore. Here with more on the rules of the road for golf carts are Brandon Dawson along with Jeffrey Ward. Wow, this is a big topic because it seems like there are just so many more golf carts that are out there right now.
Absolutely. Something we've been talking about for years, right, is golf cart safety. And as you mentioned, we just see more and more of them on the roads, as you and I were talking about here with Jeff before. Both of us, have golf carts. We use them around the neighborhood. And so we always get questions of, what should we do? What are the laws? And so, we just want to be here to answer some of those questions. Speaking
of the laws with golf carts, are accidents treated differently with golf carts than they are with a vehicle? By law?
I mean, by law, no. It's especially if it is registered properly and has proper insurance. It is a vehicle just like any other on the roads. There are rules that follow golf carts on what roads they can be on. Certain roads that have certain speed limits. You can only go up on a road that's up to 35 miles an hour. You can only cross over roads that are more than that. So if you're going down a road that's 35 and at an intersection that road is 40, 45, 50, you can cross that road, but you can't turn onto it. So it's always really important to know that. Make sure it's properly registered. Make sure you have as much insurance on it as you can, because 100 times out of 100, if you're in a car wreck with a golf cart, you're going to be on the losing end of that. There's just not the same safety mechanisms in a golf cart that you see in a regular car. Make sure it has seat belts. Just do all the things you can to be as safe as possible with them.
You're talking about golf carts and where they go and so forth. It depends on the size and type of golf cart. Is that correct?
There's a golf cart and there's what they call an LSV or a low-speed vehicle.
Okay.
The LSVs are the ones that are registered. You see the license plate and everything on those. You can take those further. They have some different rules and regulations about when they can be used, but they require, I think a backup camera, windshield wipers, seat belts. There's a whole host of things that they require. And as Jeff mentioned, there's a radius within your home in which you can take the golf cart and LSVs. Both of them, the LSV, you must, in order to get the license plate, you must show proof of insurance, just like with your car. Golf carts, you can get a decal to legally drive them. It's a little bit less regulated, I would say. You get a little decal, you write on there, hey, I've got Farm Bureau insurance, and that's about as far as it goes. If you do get pulled and you don't have that, you would get a ticket for it. But the LSVs are certainly more regulated. They're a little bit safer. Again, as Jeff mentioned, though, I would treat this like you're riding a bicycle or a motorcycle on the road, and understand that you want to have as much underinsured motorist coverage as you possibly can, because if you're not at fault and somebody plows into you, I can guarantee you their car is bigger, stronger, heavier than your golf cart, and you will more likely than not have much more serious injuries than if you were in your vehicle for the reasons Jeffrey mentioned. No airbags, no side curtain airbags. You don't have all the other safety features that you have in a $50,000, which I think is the average price of a new car these days, vehicle. So that underinsured motorist coverage will protect you if the person that hit you didn't have enough coverage to cover all your medical bills, pain and suffering, lost wages, and things like that. So protect yourself.
You're also pertaining to the insurance that typically covers these accidents, right?
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Brandon's point, though, one other huge thing is, for the love of God, don't let your 14, 15, 16-year-old kid drive one of these.
That was going to be my next question. If I can interrupt. You're supposed to have a driver's license.
Yeah,
correct?
Got to have a driver's license.
Yep, definitely have a driver's license. But even still, I wouldn't let my 16 or 17-year-old kid drive around in one of these if I'm not in the golf cart with them, because they treat them, like an ATV. They act crazy on them. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They're not being safe. They're not paying attention because it doesn't feel like a real vehicle to them. It's just a plaything. And so it's just not something I would ever recommend outside of your kid being on a golf course to ever let them drive one, especially if you're not going to be in it with them.
Yeah, we were talking during the commercial break that South Carolina, and we can notice along the low country, they've had their accident. They've had a number of accidents, golf cart accidents.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we've had some of those, come across our desk. Some very, very serious, injuries from them, because again, the reasons we mentioned, there's not the same safety features that you have in a car. And so, to Jeff's point, you have to have a driver's license, and I get, you let your kid drive a car. All right, I'll let them drive a golf cart. I understand that, but make sure that you are telling them you can't text and drive just because you're in a golf cart. You can't text and drive in a car. car. That's a law now. You're going to get a ticket for it. You can't do that while you're riding or driving a golf cart.
See it all the
please
time.
treat them the same way. Don't be distracted. Keep your eyes on the road.
Yeah.
And Jeff, nailed it. Like, people let their guard down when they're on a golf cart. They think, oh, I'm only going 15 miles an hour. Next thing you know, you blow through a stop sign because you're looking down at your phone, and boom, an avoidable collision happens because you weren't paying attention. We don't want to see that happen.
Appreciate you guys coming in today and talking about this and clearing it up. Will you promise me you'll come back and we'll talk about e-bikes?
E-bikes go hand in hand these
what
days.
they're doing right now.
Yeah, they're more dangerous, and the small children we see riding around on those, going God knows how fast, and popping wheelies, not paying attention.
Yeah.
It terrifies me. None of my children have an e-bike. They never will, but they're getting to that age where some of their friends are starting to get them, and I'm just like avoiding that conversation because I know they're going to eventually ask, and it is just an absolute no for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Mayor Haney, I know in Mount Pleasant, is certainly trying to put the kibosh on those and sidewalks and all that. And so we can certainly talk about it more later, but I agree with Jeff. Be extra careful if you're on an e-bike, big helmets, have all the conversations with the kids. We just want people to be safe. We don't want people calling because they got hurt. Unfortunately, we see it a lot, but these are the conversations we want to share with people to hopefully avoid a lot of those.
Brandon, Jeffrey, thank you. Again, the thumbs up, guys. We appreciate it. More Low Country Live coming up right after this. Stay with us.